Hey everybody, this is Sean Riley with Riley Real Estate and MassHomesale.com with this week's Q&A Saturday video. This week we're going to be answering the question of should we sell our house when getting a divorce? Divorce is something that is a very real situation that comes up for a lot of people in our country. And when the couple owns a house or other real estate, but generally, talking about the house that they live in, it's often, almost always, when they do, is their largest asset and the most complicated one to get rid of if they want to, and the one that needs to be figured out the most about who's entitled to what. Most of the other things are a little bit easier. Obviously, they're easier to get rid of if you need to sell them. They're easier to divide up if people want to keep them. And monetarily, they're generally just not as valuable. The house is usually the biggest and most problematic asset, and it just adds a lot of stress to an already emotionally and mentally taxing situation already. Excuse me. So there's three basic things that can happen when you are getting divorced, what you can do with your house, that is. First is sell it. Second is one of the spouses can buy the other one out and stay in the house. And the last one is you can both continue to own the house, and generally in that situation one of the spouses continues to live in it. You could also turn it into a rental property or something like that as well, depending on what your circumstances are and why you want to keep it. But that's kind of a fringe situation most of the time. When they keep the house and one person continues to live in it. So let's go through all of those quickly. So the first one, selling. This is obviously the simplest one. You take the house, you sell it, and distribute whatever profits there are among the two parties, and then you're just done with it. Everybody has what they're entitled to, and you can move on. This is the cleanest. This is the way everybody can generally also would probably be the fairest in that regard as well. But there can also be problems with that. There can be emotional reasons why you don't want to do that. There can also be financial reasons. For example, if you owe more on the house than it's worth, it might not be realistic to be able to do that. You can go through a short sale the same way you could without a divorce going on. It's slightly more complicated with the whole divorce factor, and it's going to be a heck of a lot more stressful because of that as well. And again, a short sale is a very stressful situation to be in, coupled with a divorce, which is very stressful, makes it that much harder. Assuming that's not the case, and the house is in fairly good shape and fairly desirable, going with a retail sale can be pretty simple. You just list it, you sell it, and you said distribute the profits. Now the sale could drag out for one reason or another, which can make things difficult because it could drag on past when you want the divorce to be finalized. So you either delay that, or you complete the divorce with the contingency of whatever happens with the house, which again, now you're bound to the other person until you can get it sold. That can be annoying, frustrating, stressful. So even if you are looking for a retail sale, it's probably a good idea to make the price fairly attractive, underprice it by 1 or 2%, so not a mammoth amount of money, not a discount that would be attractive to an investor, but somebody who's looking to buy a retail house might go for yours over somebody else's because it's priced pretty well. And, the price, the couple of $1,000s you might sacrifice just to get it sold fast is probably worth the peace of mind. My opinion. Obviously everybody's situation is different. The next situation is one spouse buying out the other one. So again, this is fairly straightforward, where one of the spouses wants to stay in the house, the other one agrees to it if they can get off the title and off the mortgage and stuff like that. So the one who wants to stay there does a refinance, and they pay the other person off, get them off title, so now they own the house alone, and the financing is all in their name. The other person gets whatever money they're entitled to, and again, done with it, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Simple, straightforward, but not necessarily easy or realistic. So the first thing is, oftentimes it's very hard for one person to qualify to refinance a mortgage that both people originally had to qualify for in order to get in the first place. Even if that's the case, the second problem is you have to make sure you have enough equity in the house to be able to refinance it first off. So if you have the problem of being underwater, this just isn't going to work anyway. But even if you do have equity, the other thing is you have to buy out the other person. So So if you don't have enough equity to refinance the existing mortgage balance and whatever you have to pay them, then you have to get the funds from somewhere else. Now, this might not be a problem. Maybe you have a lot of other assets, a large bank account, a stock account, other tangible assets like cars and stuff, where you guys can make it work out. But if you don't have that and you don't have enough equity in the house to buy the other person out, then again, this won't work. Other than that, there's not really any other kind of downsides to that. And the last situation is you don't sell the house and one person, generally, like I said, you could do other stuff, but generally one person stays in the house, but both people continue to own it and are responsible for the financing. This is definitely the worst situation for everybody because it's definitely risky. And obviously you're tied to this other person who you have decided you no longer want to spend your life with, and for one reason or another probably don't like all that much. Even in an amicable divorce, obviously there's a reason why you decided to get divorced. So being financially bound to this person for probably years is not necessarily an attractive situation. This most often comes up when one spouse cannot buy out the other one, but they want to stay in the house because you have minor children, and you don't want to, with the upheaval you're already putting them through, you don't want to have them to also have to move. So some agreement is made for people to stay in the house for some amount of time, generally not past when the youngest child turns 18. That's a common thing, but obviously you can work out whatever arrangement you want. The other scenario for that is if one of these things that we're talking about with the problems with selling or buying out the other person, as far as just not being able to sell for one reason or another, not enough equity in the house, you might be upside down on the loan and don't have the rest of the assets don't make up enough to be able to get to it. Maybe the house is in really bad shape, so it's just going to be difficult to sell without a substantial discount or something like that. So those are the other reasons why you would stay in that, even if the minor child issue is not something that comes up. It's risky because both people are still on the title, so if there is some sort of liability situation that comes up, the person who doesn't live there could also be partially responsible for any kind of lawsuit that comes up if somebody's injured on the property or something like that. It also remains on both people's credit, so it's going to be more difficult for somebody. So say the person who is not living there anymore wants to buy a new house, they have to be able to qualify to buy the new house with that existing mortgage on their credit. So that makes it much more difficult. And in the worst situation is if somebody doesn't pay the mortgage anymore, it's going to hit both persons' credit reports. So regardless of what the arrangements are, maybe the person living there is paying the entire mortgage. Maybe there's some sort of, agreement made that somebody pays some of it and the other person pays some of it, something like that. But basically, if whoever's responsible stops paying, it's going to hurt both people's credit. And even if there's nothing malicious involved, you might have spiteful people who be like, oh, I'm just going to get that so-and-so and, screw up their credit and they're going to lose the house and this and that. It could just be, the spouse who's not living there anymore loses their job and just can't afford to make all of their different payments. It would be the rare person that's going to pay your mortgage before they pay their own housing costs and for their own food and for their own clothing and other obligations for themselves. Are they going to let their car get repossessed so they can make your mortgage payment? Unlikely that that's going to be high on their priority list, even if it does hurt their credit as well. So there's a lot of risks in that particular situation. Generally, in my opinion, if you're getting divorced, the best thing to do is to either sell the house, or if the person can buy the other person out, that's essentially the same as selling it. So those are the best options. If you have problems selling the house because of its condition, location, stuff like that, so it's not as desirable, going to be harder to move, that's when an investor can definitely help because they can move in, they can basically get you guys money and get you out of there fast. So anybody who is going through a divorce, I'm sorry, and I know it's a tough time. If you do need help disposing of a property, you can certainly get in touch with us. We can help with that. So anyway, that's a little bit on how to deal with real estate when you're getting divorced. There's definitely a lot more to it, but those are most of the basics. If you have any questions or comments, as always, leave them below. And if you have a question you would like to see answered in a future video, as always, you can leave a comment, you can fill out a form on the website, you can put something on our Facebook page or Twitter account, or send an email to info@masshomesale.com. And other than that, I hope everybody has a good week, and I'll talk to you next Saturday. Thanks. Bye-bye.